Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and this is Mithuna. I'm studying in Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering, Bangalore, Department of Information Science and Engineering, and today I'm going to explain about basis path testing, guidelines and observations. Today's agenda is introduction of basis path testing. What is meant by basis path testing? And second one is steps in detail, guidelines for testing, observations, conclusions. And what is meant by basis path testing? What is basis path testing? Basis path testing is also called as a white box testing method used in software engineering. It focuses on defining test cases based on flows or logical paths that can be taken through a program. The goal is to identify the number of independent paths explicitly, allowing us to maximize test coverages. In path testing, cyclomatic complexity after the generation of the control flow graph, calculate the cyclomatic complexity of the program using the following formula: McCabe's cyclomatic complexity, that is E minus n plus 2p, where E is called number of edges in the control flow graph, n is number of vertices in the control flow graph, p is program factor. Therefore, by definitions, what is meant by basis path testing is technique of selecting the paths in the control flow graph that provides a basis set of execution paths through the program or model. Since this testing is based on the control structure of the program, it requires complete knowledge of the program's structure. To design test cases using the technique, 4 steps are allowed. First one, it is construct the control flow graph. Second step, compute the cyclomatic complexity of the graph and identify the independent paths. Design test cases from independent paths. Here the steps in detail are: first step, it is control flow graph. A control flow graph is a flow graph is a directed graph which represents the control structure of program or model. A control flow graph, that is V, number of nodes or vertices, and E is number of edges in it. A control graph can also have junction node, decision node, region nodes. Junction node, a node with more than one arrow entering it, and decision node, the one arrow leaving it, more or a one arrow leaving the region. Area bounded by edges and nodes, that is called as regions. These are there are in program there are different loops like if then if else loop, do while loop and switch cases while do loop. So for that, how we want to construct this flow graph? For sequence, it is node 1 to node 2 or n number of nodes it will be there. And therefore is if then else loop, that is node 1 is again directed towards node 2 as well as node 3, and from node 3 node 2 node 4 it is been entering. So by seeing this image you can get to know that how this if then else program, like how this construct flow graph is constructed, and same as for similarly for do while, switch case and while loop. For while loop, it is from node 1 to node 2 it is entering. Again the condition, if it is a loop, again from node 2 to node 1, or the condition if it is false it goes to node 3. So like this the loop has been loop will be flow, and this construction graph is the flow graph is shown visualizing so how the program is going to run and how many test cases can be done. It is like a plan and wherein all the test cases should be done. So similarly for switch cases also. Cyclomatic complexity. The cyclomatic complexity is said to be a measure of the logical complexity of a program. It can be calculated using 3 different formulae, that is based on edges and nodes, decision nodes and regions. For edge and nodes, it is E minus n plus 2 into P, where E is edges, n is vertices, P is connected components. And here D, for decision node, D plus P, where D is the number of decision nodes, P is number of connected nodes. Formula based on regions is number of regions in the graph All these three formulae can be used to compute and verify the cyclomatic complexity of the flow graph. For one function, example main or factorial, only one flow graph is constructed. If in a program there are multiple functions, then a separate flow graph is constructed for each one of them, also in the cyclomatic complexity formula. The value of P is set depending on the number of graphs present in total. And if a decision node has exactly two arrows leaving it, then it is counted as one decision node. However, if there are more than two arrows leaving a decision node, it is computed using this formula: D is equal to K minus 1. Here K is number of arrows leaving the decision node. And third, it is independent paths. An independent path is a path through a decision to decision path graph that it is also called as a DD path, cannot be reproduced from other paths by other methods. An independent path in the control graph flow graph is the one which introduces at least one new edge that has not been traversed before the path is defined. The cyclomatic complexity gives the number of independent paths present in a flow graph. This is because the cyclomatic complexity is used as an upper bound for the number of tests that should be executed in order to make sure that all the statements in the program has been executed at least once. Consider first graph given above. Here the independent paths would be 2 because number of independent paths is equal to the cyclomatic complexity. So the independent paths in above first given graph, path 1 it is A tends to B, path 2 is C tends to D. Independent paths are not unique. In other words, if for a graph the cyclomatic component comes out by Bn, then there is a possibility of obtaining two different sets of paths which are independent in nature. Fourth one, it is design test cases. Finally, after obtaining the independent paths, test cases can be designed where each test cases represents one or more independent paths. And by this, what are the advantages? Means basis path testing can be applicable in the following cases, that is more coverage, maintenance testing, unit testing, and integration testing, testing effect. What is more coverage? Basis path testing provides the best code coverage as it aims to achieve maximum logic coverage instead of maximum path coverage. Okay, maximum means there will be number of codes in the line, but we need to test all the lines. It can't be, it takes too much long time. But what is the logic? Main logic, if we calculate, then it is the we tested almost all the program. So this results in all overall and overall through testing of the code. Maintenance testing: when a software is modified, it is still necessary to test the changes made in the software, which as a result requires path testing. Unit testing: when a developer writes the code, he or she tests the structure of the program or module themselves first. This is why basis path testing requires enough knowledge about the structure of the code. Integration testing: when one module calls other modules, there are high chances of interface errors. In order to avoid the cases of such errors, path testing is performed to test all the paths on the interface of the modules. Testing efforts are: since the basis path testing technique takes into account the complexity of the software while computing the cyclomatic complexity, therefore it is the initiative to note that testing effort in case of basis path testing is directly proportional to the complexity of the software program. And guidelines for testings are: define clear and measurable testing goals. Establish what needs to be tested and what consistence or pass or fail for each test. When all the test cases is passed, then the program and the output will be okay 100%. If one fails means according to the tester, then again that statement has been changed. Again, from the testing will be proceeded from first to last. Write comprehensive test cases. Develop a set of test cases that cover all possible scenarios, including edge cases and negative test cases. Create test data. Create test data that represents the expected and unexpected data that the software will encounter during normal operation. Automate testing. Automate as much of the testing as possible to increase efficiency and reduce human error. Use multiple testing techniques. Use a combination of different testing techniques such as unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and acceptance testing to provide a comprehensive test coverage. Use test driven development. Document the testing process and continuously test and monitor. Involve the end users. Use a testing framework. Use test driven development. This is a method where the tests are written before the code. This approach helps in verifying that the code meets the requirement and also helps in refactoring the code. Document the testing process. Keep detailed records of the testing process, including test cases, test data, and test results. This can be helpful for debugging and maintaining the software. Continuously test and monitor. Continuously test and monitor the software during development and after release to ensure that it continues to function as expected, and involve the end users. Get the end users involved in testing to ensure that the software meets their needs and is easy to use. Use a testing framework. Using a testing framework to help organize and automate the testing process. Okay, in this slide we can see that observations, advantages of path testing. The path testing method reduces the redundant tests. Path testing focuses on the logic of the programs, and path testing is used in test case designs. What are the disadvantages we'll see? A tester needs to have a good understanding of programming knowledge or code knowledge to execute the tests. The test cases increases when the code complexity is increased. And finally we come to conclusion, and we'll see here what is basis path testing. Identifies independent paths in source code through which software execution flows. The main objective of this testing method is to ensure that every path is covered and executed. It is also designed to reduce the occurrence of redundant tests. Remember, effective testing is crucial for delivering high quality software. Basis path testing contributes to achieving robust test coverage and improving code reliability. Thank you.